All right, so this is the largest perfect square method to simplify a square root. Again, when we simplify a square root that's not a perfect square, we're not getting a decimal, we are getting the exact answer. So that means we will have a square root, most likely in our answer, like 5 root 3. That is an exact answer. Our calculators sometimes can give us the exact answer, but usually we'll see it as a decimal. So 5 root 3 is the same thing as 8.66. This is an irrational number. It goes on forever, whereas 5 root 3 is the exact answer. So in order to do this, we need to know basically our perfect square list. So to make your perfect square list, all you need to do is square your integers. So 1 squared is 1. We're really not going to use that one because 1 times anything is anything. But these are the ones that we really want to know. 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, and 144. And again, this list can go on forever. Next one would be 13 squared, so that's 169. So if we know these numbers, this makes factoring this into two numbers, one which will be a perfect square and one not, easier. So the first thing we need to do is find the largest perfect square that divides the radicand. Remember, the radicand is whatever's inside the square root. Here's a little hint. It doesn't mean this is the answer, but the largest perfect square is less than or equal to half the radicand. So you'll see what I mean by that when we start with the square root of 180. We're going to rewrite this radicand as the product, so multiplication of the two factors or the square roots. And so, again, when we do the example, you'll see how we write those two examples, okay? So let's look at the square root of 180. I'll put another example for the next slide, and then you can pause the video and try that example. So the square root of 180, again, we're going to start by finding the largest perfect square that divides this radicand. And so the hint, the largest perfect square, so a number that's on this list, is less than or equal to half the radicand. So I'm going to divide 180 by 2, and we get 90. So that tells me that my largest perfect square has to be 81, 64, 49, 36, 25, or 16, 9, or 4. It has to be one of those numbers. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with 81, and I'm going to see, does 180 divided by 81, does that give me a non-decimal answer? No. So we're going to go to 64. 180 divided by 64 still doesn't give me a whole number answer. 180 divided by 49, still no. Keep working your way up the list until you get to this 4. If by 4 it doesn't work, then you can't simplify the square root. So 180 divided by 36, we get 5. So 180 is the same thing as the square root of 36 times the square root of 5. These are the same numbers because 36 times 5 gives us that 180. Now, what is the square root of 36? Well, the square root of 36 we should know is 6. We cannot simplify the square root of 5, and so we have times the square root of 5. And we can check our answer, at least the decimal, to see that we get the same answer. So square root of 180 is 13.416. 6 times the square root of 5 is 13.416. So I know this, in fact, does equal the square root of 180. So I'm going to give you another example. Let's do the square root of 128. And again, we need to know our list. So pause the video, try it, see if you get the same answer as I do. So I'm going to start with 128 divided by 2. That's 64. 64 is on our list. 64 is a perfect square. So by dividing by 2, I know my answer right away. This is the same as square root of 64 times the square root of 2. 64 times 2 gives us 128. The square root of 64 is 8. Copy the square root of 2. So the square root of 128 is equal to 8 root 2. Let's just check. Oh. 8 second square root. Let's try that again. 8 square root 8 square root of 2 is 11.313, and the square root of 128, 11.3137. So again, this is using the perfect square method. The key is you need to find the largest perfect square.